This is the Phanteks Eclipse G370A. It's a budget-friendly PC case that we've honestly had our eye on since Computex 2025. Is this the new case to beat in the budget building space, or did Phanteks, shave the corners too closely with this low dollar option? Well, we're gonna find out all about that right here, right now on Robeytech after a word from our sponsors. This video is brought to you by our official Robeytech Build Mat. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll probably recognize it. We love these things. They're super thick and durable, and they're absolutely huge in size, measuring at 5.5 millimeters thick and 24 by 48 inches wide. This one that we have right here, man, this has been in the studio for like 4 years and it's still holding up great, no problem. We've also included all sorts of useful graphics showing different PC form factor sizes, including schematic diagrams and connectors you'll encounter probably during your PC build. Not to mention, there's plenty of open space for screw and tool organization. We designed it like this so no matter what skill level of builder you are, it could be a helpful tool for pretty much everyone. Now, you can find these build mats for sale on our Newegg store, and it's a great way to support us directly if you enjoy the content we make. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. When it comes to PC cases, Phanteks, let's be honest, has had some bangers. Not only have they taken some big swings with creativity in cases like the Phanteks NV7 and the Evolve X2, but they've also had a case that has been one of our staples for budget builds, the XT Pro Ultra. So when we were at Computex, we were dazzled by the shiny updates to some of these lines, but then we heard about the Eclipse G370A. For $60, you get an airflow-focused Phanteks case with 3 RGB equipped and daisy chain fans ready to roll. This had all of the markings of a budget build champ, right? It does, and it also has some limitations. We're gonna unpack them in this review, but before this train leaves the station, we wanna say a huge thank you to Phanteks for sending us over the Eclipse G370A for this review. We already shared a bit of the core selling points for this case. It's $59.99 and it comes with 3 Phanteks M25 Gen 1 D-RGB pre-installed fans. And when I say they were pre-installed, I don't mean that they were just slapped in the case with wires kind of going everywhere. They were actually pretty neat thanks to their daisy chain connections. That's great because when you're on a budget, anything you don't have to spend extra on is totally a boon. And speaking of extras, that's pretty much the extent of the extras for the G370A. Black is your only option for color, and there is not a non-fan variant of this case. Now, if you're counting, and you notice we said only 3, but you see 4 here, the G370 doesn't come with a pre-installed fan for exhaust, which honestly is a bit of a bummer. But we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, so let's talk about the competition in this space. In the $50 to $75 range, there are a number of unfamiliar names, but however, there are some names like the Thermaltake V200 lives in this space, along with the Antec NX410, both of which come with an exhaust fan. Not being passive aggressive about the fan, it's just worth considering when you're comparing. As far as physical dimensions go, the G370A is similar in height to the Antec C8, but also has a slender width to it like the Asus A21 and the Lianli Landcool 207. When it comes to weight, the G370A weighs around 14 pounds or 6.4 kilograms, so not too hefty. Comparatively, it weighs about a pound less than the Fractal Pop Air and about a pound more than the Pop Air Mini, and around the same weight as my pug Maggie after a Thanksgiving dinner. As for I/O and controls, the G370A has 1 USB Type-A port, 1 USB Type-C port, a combo audio jack, a power button, and a reset button. And I also have to call this out here. While Phanteks did give us a unified cable for the cable's top controls, they only gave us 1 internal USB 3.0 cable. That means that the USB connection on the top is not going to be at a higher speed connection. That feels like a little bit of a miss, but again, this is only a $60 case. What isn't a miss is how easy it is to work inside of the main chamber of this case. Phanteks provided a wide open space here for motherboard installations and a fairly broad list of compatibility for motherboard sizes. According to the product page, the G370A can support your mini ITX, your micro ATX, your ATX, your E-ATX motherboards, as well as the server system infrastructure enterprise electronics bays or SSI-EEB boards, which, hey, bonus, but I don't think they're going to be putting these inside of there. In other words, this thing can support just about any motherboard imaginable, with the exception of back connection boards. I guess Phanteks had to draw the line somewhere. Now moving on to GPU support, the G370A can fit GPUs with a max length of 375 millimeters with front fans installed, which is enough space if you're looking at spending all of your budget on a 358 millimeter long Asus ROG Astral RTX 5090. But I kind of doubt that's going to be the GPU you're putting in a case like this. That being said, between the space inside and the included support bracket, most GPUs should fit inside, but check with your GPU manufacturer to see if your GPU of choice will fit just to be safe. Now, one more note here, and this isn't surprising, it's just something we weren't expecting to see in this case. The PCI lane covers need to be broken out of the case. I know that most of the time these extra lane covers end up in a motherboard box or collection of PC case parts, but it just feels bad having to break parts of your case off to get your PCI cards to fit. I mean, is it that much more? The XT Pro Ultra wasn't that much more expensive. Now, since we're on the topic of fit, let's talk about support for fans and cooling, starting with radiators. The G370A can support a 360mm radiator at the case top or a 240mm radiator at the case front. Because of the way the PSU shroud is designed, there just isn't enough space for a fan and radiator in the gap. As for fan support, the G370A can support 3 120mm fans in the case front, 3 120mm fans at the case top, one 120mm fan at the case rear, so no 140mm or bottom air intake support in this case. Now, moving on to CPU air cooling solutions, the G370A has 170mm of clearance inside for CPU air coolers. Now, moving on to storage space, the G370A has a bracket located on the opposite side of the motherboard tray that can fit two 2.5-inch SSDs, as well as a location on the bottom of the case for a 3.5-inch physical drive. If you are looking at using a 3.5-inch drive down there, Phanteks does ship the case with standoffs and rubber dampeners, which is nice for physical drives like that. As for PSU support, the G370A can support PSUs with a length of up to 200mm, which is plenty of space for most PSUs and their cables. Now, one thing we will point out before we move on to metrics is that the G370A does not offer a lot in the way of cable tie downs in the back. In one respect, there aren't a lot of places to tie cables down, but the overall aesthetic is clean thanks to the limited cables for fans and RGB that come pre-installed. Just try to avoid bundling cables near pass-throughs, and your build could turn out as slick as ours did. Okay, now that we know the ins and the outs of the Phanteks Eclipse G370A, let's see if it can eclipse the competition in thermal performance. As a reminder, the specs for our test PC are actually on the screen here. These are the same parts we use in all of our PC case tests every single time. All of this is done in the same testing environment, with the same temperatures, with the same tests, and the same Intel stock CPU settings every single time. Now onto the data. Starting with our AIO test under full CPU load, the G370A landed on the warmer side of our rankings with an average temperature of 77 degrees Celsius. This average positioned the G370A in between the Cooler Master TD500 Mesh V2 and the Li 011 Vision. Moving on to gaming, the G370A held averages on the cooler side of our charts at a hair below 42 degrees Celsius. These temps put it in line with cases like the Geometric Future Model 5 and the NZXT H6 Flow, which was our reigning king of cool case back in 2023. And you can see more about that one right here. So not a bad start for the Eclipse G370A. It handled itself pretty well with an AIO. Switching cooling styles to air cooling for our CPU load tests, the G370A averaged just above 77 degrees Celsius. With this configuration, the G370A looked a lot like the Asus TUF Gaming GT302, which is not a bad case to emulate. Moving on to gaming, the G370A averaged just under 45 degrees Celsius, placing it in between the newly redesigned H7 Flow and the Fractal Meshify 3. So far, the G370A looks like a decent option for either air-cooled or AIO-cooled builds on the CPU side. Let's talk about GPU temps. In our AIO setup, the G370A held an average GPU temp on the warmer side of 65 degrees in our 1440p gaming benchmarks. This positioned it next to the warmer end of our charts, next to cases like the Asus ROG Hyperion and the Li SUP 01. But again, warmer, not alarmingly so. When we start looking at our air cooler test results, we don't really see a whole lot of change, but what about with an air cooler? During our gaming benchmarks, the G370A's test GPU averaged north of 64 degrees, placing it so close to the Eclipse G400A that we're sure that they were rehearsing a pitch for a rival to the Parent Trap. Again, not terrible results for our GPU here, nothing in danger, but we've seen more successful cases. So, with our thermals tested and a build or two completed, would we recommend the Phanteks Eclipse G370A as your next PC case? If you're looking at a low dollar option for a case, the G370A is certainly that. It's spacious, it's really straightforward to build inside of, and it provides an inexpensive launch point for budget builders to grow with, so long as you're okay with breaking out PCI lane covers and thinking through how you want to tie down your cable runs. A $60 case does sound really appealing on paper, and if you're trying to maximize your budget, the lower cost does make us wonder, though, if spending a little bit more money on a case with better options is the right play, or bringing this one up to speed is better. Here's what I mean. If you want to add an exhaust fan, at the low end you're looking at spending around $8 to $10 on a reputable fan. Is it 100% necessary? Not entirely. While it can be beneficial to have a fan back there, it's not like you can't add a fan down the road. But consider that $8 to $10 for a second. Adding that into your budget turns your $60 case into a nearly $70 case. And in that price range, cases like the MSI MagForce 321R Airflow live, which comes with 420mm A-RGB fans and high-speed USB ports. Understand that we can't vouch for the MSI case, and we're not discouraging you from the G370A. We just want you to look at the broader picture instead of isolating the cost of the PC case from the cost of the rest of your build. At the end of the day, only you can decide what makes the most sense for you and your goals. At its core, the Eclipse G370A offers a lower cost alternative in a market flooded with cases at pretty much every price point. It performs decently well with either an AIO or an air cooler, and it really is a good case to build inside of, especially if you don't have a lot of experience building. Does it replace the XG Pro Ultra as our favorite budget case? Probably not, but there is a $20 difference. And you know what? That little bit of savings could mean money saved or extra margin to enhance another part of your build. And with that, this one's done. Those were our thoughts on the Phanteks Eclipse G370A. Overall, a decent budget option, but we want to know what you think. For the type of PC build that makes sense for a case like this, what do you think of the omissions? Are they deal breakers or nothing to fuss about? And speaking of budget builds, what would you slap inside of a case like this? Let us know in the comments below. Now while you're down there, go ahead and slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this, either here on Robeytech. Oh, also go do it over on Robeytech Live. And if you want to continue the conversation, talk about questions in this video, or you want to just figure out what you might want to put inside of your own build, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. It's an amazing place to meet other tech and PC enthusiasts and talk about stuff just like this. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech on all your favorite social media platforms. And if you made it this far, I want to say a huge thank you for sticking with me throughout this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.